Hi, I'm your host, Buzo. The following is a conversation I got to have with Monika Egli-Alge. She's an expert on pedophilia, and I got to ask her some questions regarding the topic and the work that she does. You can find a link to her website in the description down below. She's very insightful, and I got to learn a lot from this conversation. If you want to support what I do on this channel, you can do so over on LiberaPay. The link is in the description. Any donation is greatly appreciated. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did, and now I bring you Monika Egli-Alge. Thank you, Monika, so much for taking your time out of your busy schedule to talk to me, to answer some questions about the organization Kein, Täter, Werden and pedophilia, all that subject. To everybody who doesn't know you, including me, can you give us a short intro to yourself, maybe your educational background, maybe your career, and what led you to the work that you do right now?
Yes, thank you that you make this interview for this very important issue. I'm a psychologist, psychotherapist, and a forensic psychologist. These are the frames of my business, of my profession. First, in my career as a psychotherapist, I worked in an outpatient and inpatient unit for child and adolescents. And I had to do with victims of sexual abuse, families, children's, adolescents, and we tried everything to help these victims. And that's a very, very important work and also a very hard work. Then about 20 years, 25 years ago, we had the idea to work also with the perpetrators. And first, when I heard that, I thought, no way. No way. We have first and we have overall to help the victims, to reduce the traumatic influences of their lives. But then I thought, might be a good idea to prevent sexual abuse. You have to work with the perpetrators. I had to change my mindset, and that was not very easy, because we always first have to think of the victims. And then we tried here in the Canton Thurgau, we checked out what work is done with perpetrators, and it was not so very common to work with perpetrators. We found some concepts in the US, Canada, and in the Netherlands. And we had some education then, and we started the work 25 years ago. We first worked with adolescents who committed sexual abuse. And we've been the first institution in Switzerland who offered the therapy for adolescents who commit sexual abuses. And then we developed further. We made some offers for adults as well. And then we worked, you can say, in a third level of prevention. Even then, when abuses are committed, and we tried to reduce relapses.
Okay, interesting.
That's the third level of prevention, not the first. Even assaults are committed.
Yes. Okay. And that was actually going to be one of my questions. If people only come to you if they have the desires, the feelings, or even those that already committed an offense, right? Mm-hmm. So you say there's a first, second, and third level of what was it? Prevention.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are the differences between those three tiers?
Yeah, we have on the first level of prevention, we have those people who never ever have committed assaults, sexual assaults, but have the desires or feelings or even these pedophilic interests in child and adolescents. And the second level is to also have efforts on a society level to work with children, for example, to make psychoeducation or things like that. And the third level is to prevent further offenses, to reduce relapses. We have both of these groups, the first level and the third level.
Yes, interesting.
We heard about the project Kein, Täter, Werden, Deutschland, 2005. And then we thought, that's the idea. With those people who have pedophilic interests and never ever committed assaults, to work with them because they have a higher risk to assault children, commit offenses because of this interest. This was the hypothesis.
Yeah, yeah.
And they need help not to do further offenses.
Yeah, or maybe not to ever do anything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one thing that I also wanted to ask, like, why do we, as soon as we talk about pedophilia, immediately start talking about child abuse, right? Those two subjects are so closely related, even though maybe I'm wrong here, but pedophilia is not an action, right? Pedophilia is not child abuse. Pedophilia is just a desire, a sexual drive that you have towards children, right? Towards young people that cannot yet consent, right? And child abuse is something completely different, right? Why are those two subjects so closely related?
Oh, that's great, Patrick. That's the main issue on these pedophilic issues and interests and discussion as well. It is not right that a people with a pedophilic interest is also a perpetrator. We have several scientific studies all over the world, most of them in the US, and they are very good studies. And they say, all in all, not half of the people who have pedophilic interests in children commit offenses. Not the half, about 46% of the group of the pedophilics do never do offenses, and about 60% do never ever offense children. And when I say offense children, I mean hands-on sexual things with children. And I also mean hands-off, means consume of child pornography.
Yes.
So the 60% do not. And if we look in the light field, Hillfeld, if you look who offends sexually children, we see the same. About 40–50% of the perpetrators have a pedophilic interest. Mm-hmm. And about 50–60% do not have a pedophilic interest. They have other motives to offend children. So it's not right if you say people who have pedophilic interests are also perpetrators.
Yes.
Why this is? like that? I don't know. This is
why there's this immediate connection between the two.
Yeah. Maybe because people think, oh, pedophilic interests, this is so sick, this is so wrong, this is so forbidden. Maybe they make a conclusion like that. People, we all.
Well, I think also things like media maybe don't help when they sensationalize a case of a child abuse case, and there immediately comes the word pedophilia and things like that.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody that says, well, even having the desires, the fantasies about children in a sexual manner, that is already immoral and should then be illegal, right? By law, like that's just not okay. How could you maybe convince or explain to somebody that thinks this way that maybe that's not the case? Maybe we still should look at the difference between action and desire, right? Mm-hmm. How would you react to somebody like that?
Yes, that's absolutely true. We have two pairs of shoes. We have the fantasy, the interest, the desire, the sexual desire, and we have the behavior. And this is not the same. Desires, fantasies, interests are absolutely okay. We all have desires, but we not all act about the desires. Acting, doing offenses is not okay. It's illegal, you say, it's against the law. And this is absolutely not okay. There's a absolute clear limit between desire on the one side, mm-hmm. and action and behavior on the other side. And human beings can control their behavior. We do that every day, every time, all of us. And people with pedophilic interests have to do that, especially on the sexual issue. Mm-hmm. So we have to divide in a way. Desire is okay, fantasy okay. We cannot heal the fantasy. Yes. That is stable over years, over lifetime, but we can control our behavior.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think so too. I think that's a crucial difference we have to make when discussing this subject.
Yeah, and we have to discuss that on an unemotional mm-hmm. level, as you do. And for me, it's so important that people like you do projects like this to make people clear desire, fantasy is not behavior. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. If somebody approaches you with that has pedophilic interests, and you offer them therapy sessions and just treatment overall, how can we imagine that? What goes into the work you do with the affected person, affected by pedophilia?
Yeah. First of all, we have a phase of diagnostics. We first have to be clear about the pedophilic interest. Is there a pedophilic interest or not? Is there a sexual drive, a sexual attraction only for children, or both children and adults? Or is there a sexual interest on juveniles? So we have to do a very exact work on the sexual biography of this person that is hard for them. also hard for us because we have to be very, very private in these sessions. And then we have to be clear about have the people other psychological problems, maybe depression or obsessive compulsive things, or other sexual problems, hypersexuality, for example, or something like obsessive behaviors. And then we make, together with the person, we make a treatment plan.
Mm-hmm.
The treatment plan mostly is first individual sessions and then group therapy. We know from the scientific studies that group therapy is very effective, much more effective than individual therapy. But we decide that together with the person.
Mm-hmm.
We have 3 goals in the therapy. First of all, no assaults.
Mm-hmm.
No assaults ever, or no assaults more.
Mm-hmm.
And the second issue is to be clear about the pedophilic interest. I have that, and it stays lifelong. We cannot change. We cannot give some pills or massage or whatever to bring that away. So they have to live with this pedophilic interest. And the third goal is how to cope. How to cope with a sexual interest, sexual drive that never ever can be done. And that's very hard. The third goal, it's very sad also when the people are clear about that, they often get depressive. So we also have to deal about the depression or suicidal thoughts. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We also work with partners, families, if it's possible or if it's necessary. Mostly it's not possible because the people who come to us, they don't talk to anybody about that.
Mm-hmm.
You can't tell your best friend, listen, buddy, I'm a pedophile.
Yes.
That is not possible.
No.
So mostly they are very emotionally isolated, and they have to be a person in their real life who is not congruent to their real personal identity, because they always have to take away this sexual interest. It's very hard to live with that. And in a therapy, it's very important that they have goals in their lives, that they have happiness in their life. Maybe it sounds a bit crazy, but it's very important because it's a risk factor if they are very depressed, if they are very isolated, and if they struggle with their lives.
Yes. I couldn't imagine, living with this weight, right? Society just largely ignores this group, right? Yeah. It's a complete taboo, and it's a very stigmatized condition, right?
Yeah.
And how long is a therapy? Like, do they stay maybe a year or 10 years or maybe lifelong?
It's very, very individual. We have clients, they had 2 sessions They just wanted to inform themselves what's possible, how does that work, who are we, and never ever come again. And we have clients, they say 4 years, 2 years, they make a phase, for example, they come 2 years frequently, and they and we stop it, it's okay. And 3 years later, they come again. And that's a very important goal for us as therapists, to give them the possibility where they always can come again. If they see in my life, my risk conditions are different, my risk management is not very functional, so I want to reflect and to check up if I have to change something in my life. It's very important, and that's lifelong. Mm-hmm. Because the interest never changes.
And are everybody who visits you, are they there voluntarily out of their own will, or maybe do you also work with police or investigators that maybe you get people sent to you, maybe by the rule of a court or something?
Yeah, we have both groups here in Forio. Most of them come voluntarily. So they phone up themselves, even if the prosecutor at the background is already in work, in process. If the police come and have a Hausdurchsuchung or Haftbefehl, they are...
an arrest warranty or something?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. So though they get in a crisis, and they even thought before that, I need help, but they didn't. Why ever? And if that goes on, this prosecution, they phone up. They are not really voluntarily here because they have a real struggle in the background. And we have the complete voluntarily group. They never ever did some assaults, as they tell us. We don't control that. We can't control that. We are not the police. We are not prosecutors. We are not judges. So we have to believe them. It's a very, very brave act for those people to phone up here or to fill in our contact sheet at the internet and to say, folks, I need help.
Mm-hmm. That's a big step.
Yeah.
You mentioned the second tier of your prevention efforts is kind of creating a how do you say, a consciousness about this subject in society. Have you been seeing a change since you've been doing this work within society, where maybe this subject isn't as taboo anymore, or maybe where things like this happen, right? Has there been more awareness since you started working in this subject?
Very tricky question, Patrick. I think I have to say yes and no. Mm-hmm. No, because it's so deep in the mindset, this wrong conclusion that pedophiles are perpetrators. It's in our heads. On the other side, there is the Bundesrat.
Mm-hmm. Our Federal Council.
Our Federal Council, yes. We had those initiative 5 years ago, the Pedophilen-Initiative, people's initiative who said people with pedophilic interest never ever shall work with children or adolescents. And the Swiss people said yes. And they have to make a law about them. And after that, there was an initiative on the parliament from Nathalie Rickli and Daniel Josic. And after that, we had an expert group in Switzerland from the Federal Council. And the report of this group said, we have to do this primary prevention as Kein, Täter, Werden. And the Bundesrat, the Federal Council, said in September last year, yes. And give the Auftrag.
The mandate, is it that?
The mandate, yes. The Federal Council give the mandate to the cantons and said, you all cantons in Switzerland, you have to make an offer to these people. So the mindset on the highest level, Bundesrat, Federal Council, says we have a problem and there is help for this problem. And we have to do that. And the Federal Council also said we have to have nationwide campaigns like Kein, Täter, Werden Deutschland. We have to inform people. We have to work against this cognition. Pedophiles are the enemies. We have to inform the society. We have to discuss about that. And for me, that's a milestone of development in this discussion. We are very happy about that. But if we discuss with people in the bars or somewhere, people even think pedophiles are perpetrators. And perpetrators are pedophile. That's also
which is both wrong. Not all pedophiles are perpetrators, and not all perpetrators are pedophiles.
Right.
Yes.
Right. It's so simple, you know.
No, it's very important to have a nuanced discussion about this, because as soon as you start mixing words up, you're in a mess, right?
Yeah.
And
right.
Maybe discussing this subject in a bar might not be the best place, right, to bring it up.
Yes, but it has to be discussed on different levels, not just in a scientific level or in an expert level, but in all levels, and not only in a political level, but also in a level like you do. So important. You reach people that politics never reach, maybe, or scientific experts never reach.
Yes.
That's why I find it absolutely great what you do.
Thank you. I think it's important too. You mentioned that we had this initiative with no people with pedophilic interest should be teachers or something. Is there a correlation? Because I think from the media, probably we get this idea of the pedophile that's also a teacher, a primary school teacher, or the, I don't know, the gymnastics trainer that's also a pedophile. Is there an interest from pedophiles that they say, I want to look for professions that I can surround myself with children? Or is that just a wrong conception we have?
Mhm. I'm quite not very sure about the scientific level of this question. I think it's not proved that there is a correlation.
Mhm.
It's hard to untersuchen. It's hard to make
to do
scientific
studies on this
Yeah.
subject, yes, on this question.
It's hard to. They try to do it with the Catholic Church.
Oh.
There, but the studies that exist are likely criticized because of the scientific design, and they found some correlation in the Catholic Church, but it's hard to take as a fact, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people with pedophilic interests, they search the near to children, but not primary for a sexual interest, more because they like children.
Mm-hmm.
And often people with a pedophilic interest, they have a very high empathy to children, and they have a high how do you say? They can very good take the position of the children. They can what do you say? Empathy for children.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah. And perspective taking, for example.
Mm-hmm.
They have high competences in these things. But for the real pedophilic interesting people, teachers, for example, or gymnastic trainers, they have to have a higher level of behavior control if they work with children. Not to
Mm-hmm. Well, not to commit an offense to maybe the gymnastics teacher, because he works so closely with the children, maybe touching in areas where you're not supposed to be touching children.
Exactly.
It's just very, very close, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been talking mainly about people with pedophilic interests, but most studies have been done on men, and I haven't found many that have been done with women. There's a clear focus, right, on men with pedophilic interests and not with women. Is that likely to be a real case that most pedophiles happen to be men? Or because I've also read that there could be a small bias from our society that we maybe tolerate a bit more interaction between children and women than we do between men and children, right? How do you think about those studies? Most people that approach you are probably men, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you also get women?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we do. But you did a good research. We don't find any studies about women and pedophilic interests worldwide. There are some individual case studies, but there's no evidence on it. Experts say there is no reason found why women not should develop a pedophilic interest. That's the credo of the experts. It's just like you said, and there's no small bias, there's a huge bias. That be touchy from women to kids is more common. And it's more tolerated than from men. And women are working in the education field. Women have babies and are mothers. And there is a very big hypothesis. Women don't even have a sexuality. So they don't have sexual interests, and they are nice, and they are holy, and they have motherhoods. Never end.
The Mother Maria trope. She was even a virgin, right?
Exactly.
Like this.
Exactly. There's a hard effect of this mythen, that makes us blind. And that's a very dangerous bias, or very dangerous biases on it. And that's the reason why offenses from women, sexual offenses from women, are not aufgedeckt.
Are never disclosed? No, not disclosed.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Disclosed?
Yeah. I can put it in the captions or something. The word.
Yeah. We have about over 220 clients here in our project. 3 women. 2 of them had offenses with children, sexual offenses, but no pedophilic interests. And 1 of them had a pedophilic interest. No offenses.
Okay.
But that's not representative. That's our experience here. But other colleagues have the same issue. Where are the women?
Yes. I can imagine that doing studies on this subject, I mean, you can't just do like, here's a paper, fill out if you have pedophilic interests or not. Like, doesn't work like that, right? That's never going to be representative of what's actually the case.
Yeah.
Currently, I've seen most numbers are at around 1% of men. I've even seen some studies suggesting 1.5 to 3% of men that have pedophilic interests. Are those men then exclusively interested in children, or is it maybe I like women my age if they're heterosexual? I like women my age, but I also happen to like young children. Or is it just exclusively young children, or are studies not clear on that?
The studies are not clear on that. And at each study, you have to find out what do they mean with a pedophilic interest. And it's for the studies, it's quite hard to get samples and to get clear samples, because the issue as itself on a scientific level is quite new. And if something is quite new issue in experts cases, it changes. So we in the international classification orders, we speak about Präferenzstörung. I don't know the word in English.
Maybe a disruption or disorder in preferences?
Disorder, yes, disorder. And it changes in Präferenzbesonderheit.
Okay,
It's not defined as a disorder, but a speciality of the sexual preference. It's just like other issues in this field, for example, homosexuality. It was a disorder. The WHO said disorder, and now it's out of these disorders, and it's a sexual orientation. So it's the same thing with the pedophilic interests. It changes. And in a classification schematas, it's not very different. Like if for people who have only sexual interest in children or juveniles or both, or also adults. So people at the same age. It's not, you cannot difference in this classification catalogs.
Yes. It's hard. And there are these on the dark web, many websites with media from it's in here we don't use the word child pornography. I think I wrote it down. Maybe a better term would be child abuse imagery.
Yes.
That's what you use in German, something like that, right?
Yes.
The people who are on those websites, because there are many websites with many files, downloadable files, but those aren't all people with pedophilic interests, right? Also, the offenders there is also part of them has pedophilic interests, and part of them have other how do you say, interests why they're there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely true. We see there is a group of these consumers who has no pedophilic interest, but they consume these images of sexual abuse of children, and they consume it frequently, and they download millions of images and movies they never ever can watch, and they masturbate.
Yes.
Masturbate to these images, and they are more and more attracted sexually, but not pedophilic. There are other dynamics, is our hypothesis, other dynamics why they do that. There are Suchtdynamik.
Addiction. Something.
Addiction dynamics. Yeah. Just like the same thing in a addiction problematic comes on. They first consume legal pornography, masturbate, have orgasms, and further on, the legal pornography don't kick anymore. And they have to do a hard work to be attracted and to be the sexual function is ready and to have an orgasm. So they search about more attraction. And if they search in the internet, also in the normal internet, not even in the dark net, we have many clients who are in the normal internet, who never goes to the dark net and find all pictures and movies. And so they land in the child pornography. And they are shocked about themselves, what they do here. But if people see pictures or movies about sexuality, people are attracted about that, all people. And they want to see more, and there is some thrill seeking, and they are attracted about what they see. And sometimes it's a mixed up interest and attraction on the one side, and shocking, ekel,
disgust.
Yeah, on the other side. And that's very aufregend.
Exciting.
It's very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very shocking as well. And they do it again to check out if, am I pedophile? And they watch, and it's a sexual, and it becomes a sexual attraction.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And it's hard to get out of that addiction. Not even the sexual interest, but the addiction.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard to stop.
Now, we've been talking mainly about sexual attraction. Pedophilia is a sexual attraction. But is there also a romantic aspect, like love, right? I've read of a case that the guy mentions that he has been in love with this child, right? That's another level, right? One thing is the sexual attraction, but there's also the emotional strain that it has on people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How does this manifest maybe in clients, in people you work with?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a very important aspect of the pedophilia. It's not only sex, but it's also love and romantic feelings. People with pedophilic interests, they fell in love, just like we all. And they know this love can never be right, can never be. And it has its time, because the child grows up, and if it's out of the interest group, it's not possible. So they know and they feel, I never can really fall in love with the perspective. I fell in love like on the first view, but there's no way to live that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If there's a person now watching that maybe struggles with pedophilic feelings, what advice would you give that person?
Find help and be brave to take the phone or to fill out the contact sheet from institutions who give you help. Just like that.
Mm-hmm.
Do the first step as soon as possible, and there is help.
Thank you very much. Is there anything you would like to say at the end of this interview? Or
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you very much for this work you do on this kind of level, to reach more people to think different and exactly on this issue. It's very important for the prevention.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time. I enjoyed this conversation very much.
So do I. Thank you, Patrick.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.